Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coffee Conversations with Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center. I'm Janita Holt, the Volunteer and Support Coordinator here. We are so excited about today's coffee conversation with Narfunda Ross. Thank you for tuning in with us this morning and joining us to talk about your breast cancer journey. Thank you so much for joining us, Narfunda.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, first question is, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with breast cancer?
Okay, my name is Narfunda Ross. I just turned 46. I'm married. I have two handsome young men that I like to say. One's a recent graduate of Miles College in Birmingham, and my baby boy, I like to call him my eldest. I have an eldest baby and a youngest baby. And my youngest baby, he will be graduating April of this upcoming 2022. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 33. I am one of three survivors in my family. And that kind of led me on a journey that I had never dreamed of before. And that journey was to serve my purpose. I feel that I was left here to serve a purpose. It took me a while to figure out what I was to do, but I am now walking in my purpose and I enjoy it.
Wow. So, could you tell us a little bit about when you were diagnosed and, what did that look like? And, how did your children adapt to this change in their lives?
Okay, at the age of 33, actually started when I was 30. Let me back up a little bit. In the year of 2016, my mother went to the doctor and she said she felt a lump. Of course, I'm at work. My mother's a very strong woman. And my sister called me and she said, no, mom has breast cancer. I was like, okay, so what is she going to do? Just cool, calm, and collected. And my sister, who has medical background, she was like, I don't know, I'm at the doctor with her now. So my mother decided to have a lumpectomy. And when she got home from the hospital, I ran in the house because I was expecting her to stay, but she was there. And she closed the door on me and she said, I'll be out in a minute. So for like 2 to 3 weeks, she would always go in her room, close the door, and then she would come back out. We never knew exactly what she was doing in there. Mom, can I help you? No, I'm good. So, okay, that was in 2016. March of 2018, my father passed. And I was like, okay, so I was prepared for that because he had been sick some time. In the middle of the summer, I had a dream. And the dream was that my father came to me while I was in a doctor's room, and it was pure white. I didn't see faces, but I remember voices. And he said, Doc, will you please tell my daughter she has a large mass on the right side of her lungs? And I said, now, Lord, we've had this conversation. Do not allow my father to come see me unless it's something wrong. I said, because you know what the elders say is that when a dead person comes see you, that means they're coming to get you. And I said, Lord, I'm not ready. This is my conversation in my dream. And as the doctor was holding his notepad, my father said once again, he said, Doc, please tell my daughter she has a large mass on the right side of her lung. So I quickly, fought my way out of the dream and was like, I didn't tell anybody about it. That was in probably about the summer of July. Now, prior to that, I have a beautiful cousin. I said she's very beautiful. Natural hair hang down her back, pretty skin tone. I was like, oh, Lord, if I could just have her hair and her skin tone, oh, my goodness, I'm going to be a bad woman. And I just repeatedly say that sometimes. So coming up to my 33rd birthday, my aunt's husband passed. And on my birthday, they had his services. And I had a very deep pain in my chest. So I kind of grabbed my chest and I was like, okay, something's not right. So I left there and I went to the doctor, and they diagnosed me with having acid reflux. Some days later, it didn't get any better. It was worse. And it was so painful that I had to grab my breast because it was aching. And I said, oh my goodness. So I called that same sister. I was like, hey, sis, I got a knot. It doesn't feel right. She said, what do you mean by knot? So I took a picture of it, and she said, well, lay down. Can you see it? I said, no, I can't see it when I lay down, but when I stand up, I can see it. So that Sunday she came in, she said, you need to go to the doctor. So I called a good friend of mine, and I didn't want to wait. I said, hey, girl, I got a knot. I want to come see the doctor real quick. And so one thing led to another. And I was in like 2 days time of a doctor's appointment. I was having a mammogram. Hadn't had a mammogram. I'm 33. Why would I need a mammogram? Even though my mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer, I was not thinking anything about it. So had my surgery. They did all the dye testing to make sure that it hadn't spread it or anything. And thanks be to God, it had not. I had 6 rounds of chemo. And in that room, when they first told me my diagnosis, everything just went white. All I remember my doctor telling me, yes, it's cancerous. He walks out the room and leaves me with the nurse. And so she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. You know, I was not in the room. Mentally, I was not in the room, but physically I was. But after having 6 rounds of chemo, that's what the doctor suggested. And my first thought was, I have cancer. I'm going to lose my hair. Not that I may die, even though I know we're all going to die, but it's just the point of I loved my hair. I wanted good hair. And so I had to make a decision. Do I want my health or do I want my hair? So we went with the decision of chemotherapy. Once again, 6 rounds of it. And I only got sick twice. And that same sister, she's like my right arm. She and my mother took care of me during that time. She took care of my children. My mother took care of me. And you may ask us, well, where was the husband? He's never really expressed to me how he actually felt during his time, but he continued to work. And he continued to provide because he knew the boys had to have what they needed, to continue on. And so I sit back and I wonder sometimes, how would I have been if I had not seen my mother on this same journey? And the strength of my mother gave me strength like none other. I watched her, take care of herself, be self-sufficient. Even though she only had a lumpectomy, I had a double mastectomy, and I had reconstruction surgery all in the same surgery. So it was a little bit difficult for me, the usage of my arms and things, very painful. I'm not going to tell it, sugarcoat anything, but I wouldn't give anything different for it now because it was a learning experience. So my boys, how did they cope with this? They were phenomenal. They would come in, they kept their grades, straight A's. I talked to them about it, but the only thing they would see was they would come in, they would see me sitting in the chair because I wanted to be seated when they come in from school, to let them know, don't worry. Everything is going to be okay because I'm being well taken care of. First and foremost, I had all the faith in God. It was nothing but him. And I use Psalms 34:8. That is my testimony scripture. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. We have to trust in him. If you have a religious faith, you have to trust in him and believe that everything is going to be okay. And everything happens for a reason and in a season. So, during this journey, after my hair came back, I had that good hair that my cousin had. So, I was like, you have to be careful for what you ask for, because, and be prepared to receive it however it may come. So the journey has been one wonderful journey. And I say wonderful because I'm here to tell my story. And that was in 2018. So in 2014, the script flipped. My mother was 2016, I was 2018. I'm sorry, I'm saying 2018. 2006 was my mother, 2008 was me, and 2014 was that same sister that took care of me. So she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I had to flip the script and we took care of her. So it has been a learning journey for all of us.
I mean, that is, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I mean, that is so inspiring to know that, I mean, the three of you, your mom and your sister, the strength that you all have to see each other go through it and then go through it yourselves. How did you manage, switching those roles from being a survivor and a co-survivor of, two of the women that mean the most to you in your life? How did you, manage that emotionally, mentally, and spiritually even? How did you kind of cope with those changes in your lives and those around you?
Well, going back to, it was funny, everything that what we say is that we have endured, we were prepared for it and didn't even know. We didn't even know. Our mother having it and showing us the strength of a woman, how a woman is supposed to be, excuse me, that helped us to cope when we endured. And we were like co-survivors before we were actually survivors, if that makes sense. And it was just to prepare us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now, out of the three, I was the only one who had chemo because of the type that I had and the size that I had. My sister, she just had to take hormonal therapy and just keep watch of it, and that was it, because she kind of caught hers earlier than I was able to catch mine.
Wow. I'm so grateful to know that you all had each other, having that loving support system. And, not only did you have, your family and your loved ones, but you had somebody who knew exactly what you were going through, and vice versa. You knew exactly what they were going through. So I think that that's amazing that you were all able to support each other on more than one perspective,
And that makes a huge difference when you have that support team. Whether they have been through it or not, it makes a tremendous difference, because the way my mom experienced it, she could tell me a little bit how to emotionally get through it. Mentally, I had to learn on my own, and physically, I had to learn on my own. The same way my sister watched my mother and watched me, then she could get through it emotionally from our testimonies. But mentally and physically, it was something she had to learn on her own. But having that support team and others who have told stories about how they were diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's one thing I like to say is, don't have a closed mouth when it comes to cancer. All cancer diagnosis is not a death sentence. Open up, share it. You never know who you're going to help.
I agree. There is so much power in sharing. There's so many times where somebody may be going through something, but they don't know if anybody else has their experience, so they just choose to keep it to themselves. So whenever, especially here at Forge, when we have anybody who's willing to come out and share their story and inspire others, it inspires us, because there's such a strength in sharing your story. So I just want to say that again, like we're just so thankful and we're so happy that you're here to share your story. And your story is so unique. You don't really hear a whole lot of people who not only themselves have breast cancer, but their sibling and their mother, all within, a span of 10 or so years. That's a lot. That's very unique. And I think that it's just beautiful that you all had each other to support one another through that process. And I'm so glad that you're using your journey to inspire others and give back to your community as well. And in one of those ways of giving back into the community, you're serving as a representative, actually, for the Junior League of Chattahoochee Valley Women's Service League. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Recently joined the group with the league, and they have decided to place me in the position of being a diversion and equity inclusion rep. And when I got to thinking about it, I was like, this is beyond race. It's just not about skin tone. It's about lifestyles. So, that's what I'm working toward is changing the mindset to not be judgmental of lifestyles.
And I think that's so needed. And I'm glad that you're taking on this role in addressing such a prominent topic, especially in today's time when
Yes.
Things are changing and you recognize everybody's differences. You can have two people in the same household and they come out completely different. So I think that there's such power in recognizing differences. We also know that you are active in your community as co-founder of WHIP. So can you give us some backstory on WHIP and tell us a little bit about that organization?
Yes, ma'am. WHIP is like a baby to me. It started in 2015. The same person that I called to get me that quick doctor visit, she reached out to me and she said, I remember you saying something about you want to do a walk. I was like, yeah. And at that point, I didn't know the true meaning of the walk. I just want to do a walk. And she said, this was August of 2015. She said, let's have one. I was like, okay. So in October, we put together a walk and we had about, I think it was about 280 people to attend. We were just like, wow. So we had an overwhelming response from the walk. So she's like, we need to start something, do this every year. And I was like, yeah, we need to. So later on, she said, we need a group. I was like, okay. So I called my sister. I said, we need a group. What are we going to call ourselves? And so her name is Arja Bailey Gillum now. And she said, we need something that's catchy that'll get the minds of the people and to keep them interested. And she said, whip. It was the whip, nay at that point. It was a very popular song. And I said, yeah, that's good, but we need a meaning because my mother always teaches me. She said, anything you do it with purpose. And I said, we got to have a purpose. What is purpose? What is the purpose of whip? So I called my sister and we were just on three-way all day long for about 2 days. And she was like working to help those in pink. We was like, wow. Okay. So we put it out there. The next walk we included all cancers. We just didn't segregate it to breast cancer. We included all cancers and we had almost 500 people to participate. We don't ever charge for the walk because we felt like this is a time to be free. It's family time. We want all family members to come out and enjoy just the walk. And then we started putting the purpose of why do we walk? We walk to exercise. It's very known that in health, you need at least 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise, to help keep the blood flow so the blood cells will continue to flow and there's no pooling of abnormal cells to cause any type of cancer. So, we start stressing. That's why we walk, is to exercise. So the pandemic has put a halt to us just a tidbit, but we have had, we try to do an event once a quarter, and whatever we, that is contributed to our organization, we return it back locally to our communities. And that is if you need groceries, the light bill need to be paid, or you need gas money to get back to your doctor's appointment, or it, it can go towards your medicine. But we let the survivor determine where it goes. We just make the contribution back to them. It has been an overwhelming support from some of the religious organizations and individuals in this community. But that's one thing that we focus on. We focus on the local, so we know we don't disregard any statewide or any national organizations, because we are here for them as well. But in the process of you receiving whatever type support you will from them, hey, we want to be that now. That's what Team Whip is. Team Whip is working to help those in pink for the now.
Wow, and that's so needed. How does somebody become involved? Are there any volunteer opportunities, anything that you all have coming up for anybody that want to get involved?
Well, here's the thing. You don't have to be a breast cancer survivor. You don't have to even know a breast cancer survivor just to volunteer. We are on social media as Team Whip, and that's WHIP. We have a website, and that is Team Whip 2015. Our email address, if I remember it correct, I have like 16 I'm running through my head now, is teamwhip 2015@gmail.com. So anytime that we have any events going on, most definitely feel free to attend. If they're virtual events, we place everything on our website of what's going on. You can also subscribe to be in our on our newsletter. So when we have items or events going on, you will get a notification. And we are 501c3.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure somebody is going to see this video and they're going to run to participate in something with you all, because the work that you do is so necessary. And again, going back to the power in sharing your story and never knowing who you might help and inspire, and with your story being so unique, and I'm sure there's somebody else who might can relate to it. What are some tips that you may have for somebody who is dealing with or living as a co-survivor and a survivor simultaneously? What are some recommendations that you might have for those individuals who are looking for ways to be able to cope with those different stressors in a healthy way?
Well, I am glad you asked. And like I told you earlier, my mother she is like the number one supporter for me. Everything I typically do, I base it around what she has instilled in me, including my photography services. Her name is Pearlie. So now we just call her the Pearl. And something that we use in Team Whip is how to be a Pearl. And that is Pearl. And we know Pearl symbolizes wisdom. So the P, you must have a positive attitude at all times. Make sure your support team has a positive attitude. You must remain you as a survivor must also remain with positive attitude. E, engage also in activities that are not centered around cancer. It's fine to go to the movies. It's fine to go out to dinner. It's fine to take a walk in the park. Engage in activities that are not solely surrounded by cancer. E also means to educate. Educate yourself on your stages, on your types, and this is just not for the survivor as well. This is for the co-survivor, your support team. Educate yourself on the types of cancers, the methods of treatments, and the side effects. It's very important. If your support team is going to be there with you, they need to know this information as well, because it may be something that you as a survivor overlooked or didn't quite hear or understand, because you're still kind of focused on, I have cancer. A, be an advocate. Attend the doctor visit. Now, this is for the co-survivor at this point. Attend doctor visits, ask questions. That's why it's important that you educate yourself, because once again, the survivor may not realize or remember to ask certain things, but you as a co-survivor or a support team can ask specific questions. Help it, to help the person, the doctor visit to go a little bit smoother. Or resource. Search for help locally, search for help statewide, and search for help nationwide. It does not hurt to know where your resources are. Also, know about the relatives. Know your family history. I know back then a lot of families didn't discuss this because they seemed it was kind of secret. Or if you were diagnosed with cancer, you was kind of considered like the man with leprosy. Don't touch him, don't go around him because you may get it. But know your family history. Also, that L, which is very important. Listen to understand. Foster a line of communication with the doctors, with support groups, with other family members, especially the survivor. Foster a line of communication. All conversations are not for response. They are to just listen to, let them vent. And last but not least, in all in caring for other people, we must remember self-help, the S, how to be pearls. Self-help is very important. While caring for others, take a moment to care for yourself.
I love that you broke that down so eloquently. And all of those tips that you just gave are really, really great, especially for those co-survivors who may struggle with balancing caring for someone else and caring for self. It's so easy to forget self, whatever end of that you're on, whether you're in the role of the survivor or the co-survivor. It can be very difficult to remember that self-care is equally as important. And take time to still be you. You're not that diagnosis. It's something that you're living with. You're still whomever you are, and taking time to acknowledge that and enjoy being yourself in some way is so important. So I love that you brought that up as well. So at the close of this conversation, do you have anything that you would like to leave our viewers with? Any final thoughts or any other tips?
The only thing I want to say, just kind of piggyback off what you just said, we are not our diagnosis. All cancer diagnosis is not a death sentence. And there you have it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Narfunda. And as I've said before, I'm just so glad that you came on to this coffee conversation and shared your story with us. And I know it's going to inspire someone. And we hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you so very much. And thank you all for this invitation and this opportunity to share my story. Hopefully it can reach someone who is going through, have been going through, and encourage them to also share their story.